What's up guys, it's Gone, and today we'll be looking into potential offseason plans for the New York Mets to follow in order to either retool for the upcoming season or to possibly even go into a rebuild. I see many parallels between this 2023 Mets team and the 2021 Chicago Cubs team that I made a video on 2 years prior. Both are big market teams that can use their capital to rebuild on the fly, and both saw this year's trade deadline as one of the defining moments of this regime's era, trading off many cornerstone players. However, while the Cubs are currently in the thick of the playoff hunt only 2 years later, I actually think that the Mets can do the same, but only in 1 year. For starters, I'd argue that their roster is better than the Cubs roster 2 years ago. They already have their star talent in Francisco Lindor and the Baby Mets, as well as Kodai Senga, who has really impressed me this season. This very same Mets core, along with a few careful additions this offseason, can really become a threat in the National League East. But before we get on to the video, could you guys please hit the like and subscribe button? Currently, only 3% of people who watch my videos are subscribed, so if y'all do, not only would it help me grow my channel, but it also encourages me to create more videos like this one for you guys. And without further ado, let's get on to the video. As per usual, we'll start with the video by going over the future minor league talent, but considering how hingent this next season is for the Mets on their young core of Francisco Alvarez, Baty, and Vientos, I'll actually throw them in this list as well and do an analysis on them, despite them not technically being minor leaguers, but you get the point. So starting with Francisco Alvarez, he has sort of been everything MLB fans expected from him this season. He's second in the National League rookies in home runs, trailing only Corbin Carroll, and he's a very good fielder and excellent framer specifically. In a vacuum, Alvarez is your typical power-hitting catcher who has immense strength to both throw out potential runners and hit 450-foot nukes. However, as many players do, Alvarez has struggled with strikeouts, ranking in the 17th percentile in terms of whiff rate, which in large part has resulted in that paltry 207 batting average, which has taken him out of running for National League Rookie of the Year. So as for potential improvements, the change here is obvious, and that is to limit the swing and miss, without removing the power. For this, I'd look for something that Diamondbacks catcher Gabriel Moreno uses in an all-field approach that has limited his strikeout rate. If Alvarez does this, the power numbers will suffer a little bit, especially in two-strike counts due to his changed mindset, but he'll be a more complete hitter overall, and Alvarez is strong enough anyways to hit two-strike home runs, even when he's just trying to go the other way. Baty is definitely a more difficult player to analyze than Alvarez. The former first-round pick skyrocketed up many prospect boards throughout his minor league career thanks to his overall hitting province, never posting an OPS below 820 in those 3 years. However, at the major league level, nothing has really seemed to stick with Baty as he looks uncomfortable at the plate, resulting in a 617 OPS and a 71 OPS plus, making him well below league average, especially from the third base position. His negative value from the field as well, and his bat, have significantly tarnished his value, but the former top prospect still has a ton of potential, and his 26-game stint in AAA have proven that, with an OPS above 1,000. Baty's struggles come from a multitude of factors, but if there is one thing I would like to see get fixed going into next season, would be a revamped selectiveness from Baty. In terms of his batting profile, one glaring positive that you do see is his chase rate. And while Baty does chase pitches outside of the zone at a good rate, he's also too selective to pitches inside the zone, swinging at only 65% of the time on pitches inside the zone, leaving many hittable pitches on the table for what should be an above-average hitter. Lastly, for the Baby Mets who have made a significant impact to the Major League squad, we move on to Vientos, who, like Baty, has raked throughout his entire minor league career to see himself skyrocket up prospect rankings, only to struggle in his first real stint of Major League action. For starters, I believe that Vientos' call-up was handled rather poorly as he never truly got consistent playing time until September, which severely impacts one's development when they only get spot starts here and there. This could be one of the factors that has led to a measly 586 OPS and a 61 OPS plus for the Mets. However, while those numbers are a bit low, especially for a designated hitter/corner outfielder type, expected stats have Vientos hitting about 50 points higher in every category, meaning that he should probably be a league average hitter right now, with normal batted ball data. So, while I'm not worried at the slightest about Vientos' long-term bat problem, the Mets do need to work on his chase rate and strikeout issues to pave a path for sustainable success for Vientos. So now moving on to actual minor league talent, and we start with the crown jewel of this year's trade deadline and Luisangel Acuna, the prospect gotten back in the Max Scherzer trade with Texas. And although Luisangel Acuna is brothers with Ronald Acuna, I'd be surprised if he mimics the same success brought on by his older brother, as he's only 5'8" and 180 pounds, limiting his potential power capabilities. However, that doesn't mean I don't think he'll be a really solid player. Acuna has an explosive right-handed stroke, an aggressive batting approach, and solid speed and base running skills that have resulted in 126 successful steals out of 151 attempts during his seasons in full season ball. Furthermore, his versatility and athleticism make him an invaluable asset capable of contributing effectively at multiple defensive positions in the middle of the infield. However, as many young players do, Acuna does have the tendency to chase and miss non-fastballs, especially outside the zone, which affects his consistency in contact. With due time though, I think Acuna could be a very similar type of hitter to Bo Bichette, but with a little less power, but the same contact abilities. Staying in the middle of the infield now, we go on to Ronny Mauricio, who has shown promise in his very short stint with the Mets so far, collecting 5 hits in 3 games, posting a 1,000 OPS and 455 batting average. Although this is not sustainable, Mauricio has shown his abilities to hit the ball hard, which is an encouraging sign. Long time one of the best prospects in the Mets system, Mauricio is a towering presence at 6'3", who exhibits the potential for impactful hitting, particularly from the left-hand side, where he boasts better power potential. However, his penchant for expanding the strike zone and a low walk rate of 4.4% has capped his overall ceiling. Nevertheless, these issues should be solved with time. Additionally, due to his immense size, below-average speed, and logjam in the middle of the infield, both at the major and minor league level, we have questions about his future position long-term in the middle of the infield. I personally see him playing in the corner outfield long-term, but it's really a coin flip as to where he'll go. Lastly, we'll talk about some potential pitching help that could assist the Mets next season internally. And while the Mets have a few B-tier pitching prospects to choose from, the one I believe has the greatest impact to come and maybe mid-season to help the Mets rotation is Christian Scott, who is currently pitching in AA right now, posting excellent results with a 2.71 ERA this year, with 99 strikeouts to only 12 walks in 83 innings, holding opponents to a 197 batting average. Scott has a fastball reaching 93 to 96 miles per hour that occasionally touches 98 to 99, featuring two-seam action that generates swings and misses. His slider sits in the low 80s and offers a plus breaking pitch with depth, particularly effective against right-handed hitters. However, his low 80s changeup is primarily used against lefties though, and lacks significant impact. Scott's ability to control the strike zone has improved this year, making him a potential starter, but his long-term success does depend on developing that changeup to solidify his status as a reliable starter. But he could be a back-end bullpen piece as well, with that fastball and slider solely. So now that we've covered the Mets farm system, it's time to move into the actual offseason moves that I think the Mets could make. And the number one question on every Mets fan's mind is what they're going to do with Pete Alonso, who was rumored to be on the trading block throughout the trade deadline and will remain a focal point in rumors throughout the offseason. While conflicting reports give their takes on Pete Alonso, personally, I don't believe the Mets should trade him. Despite some rumors that he's a clubhouse negative, he still provides a net positive to this team, and trading Alonso symbolizes an end to this current core. Or does it? The Milwaukee Brewers have been one of the teams most heavily linked to Pete Alonso, and have been desperately looking for some hitting help for the past couple of years now. They also have some very good pitching that could help be enticing to the Mets roster, which has seen its star talent all depart. In a relatively outlandish trade, I have to admit, Pete Alonso and Marco Vargas could be sent over to the Brewers for disgruntled star Corbin Burnes. Both of these players are set to be free agents in 2024, so this trade just turns out to be a trade for need for both teams. But although this trade helps out the Mets pitching rotation nicely and Mark Vientos could slide over to first base, I still believe that the best course of action for the Mets and Pete Alonso will be to stand pat and hopefully sign him to a long-term extension. But if he does get traded, Corbin Burnes could be a player that the Mets are looking out for. So, with the Pete Alonso situation covered, it's time to move on to free agency. When all is said and done, the Mets should have around $60 to $70 million in free agency money, even considering a potential reduction in budget from the last season's historic amount. To spend this money, the Mets have a few key holes that they're going to need to fill to make a playoff caliber team. Assuming that the baby Mets keep their jobs going into spring training, the main roles to fill are in the starting rotation, corner outfield, and bullpen. And in terms of pending free agents, I don't see them re-signing any of them, and Omar Alvarez will definitely accept the player option for $7 million to be the backup catcher for this team next year. So while it may seem like the best possible move is to make a run at Shohei Ohtani, rumor is that he wants to stay on the West Coast, so now it becomes paramount that the Mets attack the rest of these free agents, especially when everyone else is keeping their wallets clear for Ohtani. While going after the best of the starting pitchers on the market may seem like an enticing option, going after guys like Blake Snell, Lucas Giolito, or Aaron Nola will hamper the Mets in the future, and I want to have all of that money invested in up-and-coming players rather than these veterans I'm buying at premium prices. So, let's grab two of these B-tier players for around $10 to $15 million each for 1 year, and signing Hyunjin Ryu and Jordan Montgomery to 1-year deals. Both of these veterans provide consistent middle-of-the-rotation starts when they're on the field and add much-needed depth to a rotation that already has top-of-the-line talent in Kodai Senga. But Kodai Senga by himself will not be enough to carry the starting pitching rotation. So, for some more star talent and the player who will be receiving the most of the budget allotted, we look overseas for the second straight offseason in a row by signing Yoshinobu Yamamoto. While other big market teams are vying after Ohtani, the Mets should be able to sign Yamamoto for anywhere around $23 to $30 million a year for around 5 to 9 years. Yamamoto is only 25 years old and should be effective for the Mets throughout the duration of his contract here and has ace potential. His fastball sits in the mid to high 90s and he possesses an above average splitter and cutter, which work nicely off that fastball. However, his main calling card is his unique 12-6 curveball, held in a kind of backwards slider delivery. On par with Kodai Senga's forkball, Yamamoto's curveball should be a unique pitch, generating tons of swings and misses and weak contact. Then, the Mets will have a very good Japanese 1-2 punch of Yamamoto and Senga for years to come. So, with the starting rotation bolstered by adding 3 quality pitchers, it's time to address the corner outfield position now. And we've exhausted most of our free agent money that we can spend this offseason, which means that the Mets should probably explore options via trade. So, with a revamped farm system, almost any player that the Mets could possibly want will be acquired. However, one corner outfielder just entering his prime that the Mets could target is Lane Thomas of the Washington Nationals. Throughout the trade deadline, Thomas was rumored to go to multiple different teams, meaning that the Nats are open to trading him. Since coming over from St. Louis, all Thomas has done is hit, posting a career OPS plus in Washington of 117. However, this season has been his best one yet, posting a batting average of 285 with a 125 OPS plus, and 23 home runs for the lowly Nationals. And at only 27 years old, Thomas is in the middle of his prime, and with 2 more years before he hits free agency, the Mets should have him under contract for about $5 to $6 million for the next 2 years. In my trade, I have outfielder Ryan Clifford and starting pitcher Eric Orzi coming back to Washington in the trade. So with this trade, the Mets refrain from trading anybody that has the potential to play a big role in 2024, but at the same time, giving the Nats a high upside piece in Ryan Clifford. So that's about it. I've covered the starting pitching rotation, the baby Mets and prospects, as well as a potential corner outfielder that they could trade for. The only thing left is bullpen, and there's a bunch of nice bullpen pieces that the Mets could possibly get, and it's basically your pick and how much money the Mets want to spend to see if they could bolster that bullpen. They also have Edwin Diaz coming back anyways. And if you would like to see me make another video on offseason, especially about a different team, let me know in the comments down below. People have said that they want another video on the best prospects in the 2024 draft, so that video will be coming up. But if you have any other ideas, let me know in the comments down below. And I will see you guys in the next one.